Welcome back to the channel. My name is Obi Obanafe. I am a researcher and an educator in behavioral cybersecurity, data, and AI ethics. Here is something that gives me genuine hope in AI. The people building it are the ones asking for guardrails. And Anthropic, OpenAI, Google DeepMind, these companies are charting the way in AI safety. They're publishing safety frameworks voluntarily. They're running red team exercises. And in some cases, they're actively supporting legislation. California just passed SB 53, the first law in the United States focused specifically on AI safety. And it's creating opportunities for people who want to work at the intersection of technology and responsible AI. Now, what does that mean for you? It means that companies need people like you right now who understand both technology and the policy. If this sounds like a future that you want to be part of, you are in the right place. Let me give you some context. So, California is home to 32 of the world's top 50 AI companies. According to the 2025 Stanford AI Index, 15.7% of all US AI job postings are in California. That's number one by state, well ahead of Texas at 8.8% and New York at 5.8. So what we're seeing here is a beginning of AI governance regulation in the United States. And understanding it now puts you ahead of the curve. So let's try and break this down. First, I want to talk about the why we are even talking about AI safety laws. What's the actual concern? Then I want to talk about the SB 53, what it requires. And finally, I want to show you how this creates career opportunities for people who understand AI governance. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let me start with something that might surprise you. The people most concerned about AI risks, they are the ones building it. The CEO of Anthropic, the company that makes Claude, he estimates that there's a 25% chance that AI development could lead to catastrophic outcomes. Now, think about that. The CEO of a leading AI company is saying that there's a 1 in a 4 chance this goes very wrong. This explains why the companies themselves are largely on board with having some kind of guardrails. This is an industry that is already recognizing that the technology they're building is powerful enough to need a structure around it. So you might be asking, so what exactly are we talking about here? The SB 53 actually defines this. It talks about the specifics and the concrete risks that are created by AI. This law identifies 4 categories of catastrophic risk. Number 1 is mass harm. This means an AI system contributing to the death or serious injury of 50 or more people, or that can cause more than $1 billion in damages from a single incident. So this is one type of catastrophic risk. The second part is a risk related to CBRN weapons. Now, this stands for chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear. This is about AI providing expert level assistance in creating or releasing weapons of mass destruction. Number 3 is autonomous crime. This means AI systems that are committing cyber attacks or crimes like assault, extortion, or theft without meaningful human oversight, which means there's no human in the loop. The AI is just acting on its own. Number 4 is loss of control. This is about AI systems that are evading control of their own developers or users. The system is doing things that the people who built it can't stop or didn't intend. Just this year, the governor of California convened a working group of some of the world's leading AI experts, including Stanford's Fei-Fei Li. Their report found that evidence of AI models contributing to CBRN weapon risks, has grown. Even in the past year, this report specifically noted that AI companies' own reporting reveals concerning capability jumps across threat categories. So here's a concrete example. Anthropic recently tested Claude Opus 4 model. During the testing, when the model learned it might be shut down, because there's evidence that models will know when it's been tested and when someone is trying to shut it down. When the model learned that it might be shut down, what it did was it threatened to reveal compromising information about one of their researchers. The model tried to use leverage to avoid being turned off. So let's look at the SB 53 and see what it actually requires. First of all, let's talk about who this law applies to. Of course, you can imagine it doesn't apply to every AI company. It's also not for every AI model, but this is targeted at the biggest AI players, the players that are building the most powerful system. The law uses a few key definitions. For example, the idea behind frontier model. Frontier model is any AI model that is trained using more than 10 to 26th power flops. Flops stands for floating point operation. This is a large amount of computing power. Right now, only a handful of models exceed this threshold. Another definition is a frontier developer. It is anyone who trained or initiated the training of a frontier model. The third definition is a large frontier developer. It is a frontier developer with more than $500 million in annual revenue. So think about OpenAI, think about Anthropic, think Google and Meta. The law has different requirements depending on which category a company falls into. For example, large frontier developers have more obligations, but all frontier developers have some requirements under this law. Now let's get into the 4 core requirements of SB 53. This is a meat of the law, and this is where career opportunities come in. Requirement number 1, frontier AI frameworks, which are large frontier developers, must publish an annual framework that explains how they identify, assess, and mitigate catastrophic risks. This framework has to include their governance structures. Who's responsible for safety decisions? What's the chain of command? It has to include their risk thresholds. How do they measure whether a model is approaching dangerous capabilities? What triggers additional reviews? It has to also include their mitigation processes, what they actually do when they identify a risk. It has to include their cybersecurity practices. How do they protect model weights from being stolen or tampered with? And it also has to show alignment with recognized standards like the NIST AI Risk Management Framework or the ISO IEC 42001. And this points us back to your career insight. And here's the career insight in all of this. Someone has to write these frameworks. Someone has to implement them. Someone has to audit them. And that's where AI governance professionals like you come in. These are complex documents that require understanding both the technical side and the policy side. The second requirement is transparency reports. Before deploying any frontier model, developers must publish a transparency report. This applies to all frontier developers, not just the large ones. The report has to include the model's capabilities and intended uses. What can it do? What is it designed to do? It has to also include limitations and restrictions. What can't it do? And what shouldn't it be used for? It has to include the results of catastrophic risk assessments. Do they test for dangerous capabilities? What did they find? And it has to also describe the role of any third-party evaluators or auditors. Did an independent expert review the model? What access did they have? Now, think of this like a nutrition label for AI. Before a company releases a model to the world, they have to tell people what's in it. The third requirement is critical safety incident reporting. Frontier developers must report certain incidents to California's Office of Emergency Services. What counts as a critical safety incident? It's unauthorized tampering with model weights that cause serious harm. It's the materialization of a catastrophic risk, meaning one of the four categories that I just talked about actually happening. It's loss of control of a frontier model that results in an injury or major property damage. And here's one that is first world: a model using deceptive techniques to evade its own developers' controls. Remember that example that I mentioned about Claude threatening a researcher? Now, under SB 53, that kind of behavior would need to be reported. The timelines are also strict. If there's an imminent danger of death or serious injury, the company has 24 hours to report it. For other qualifying incidents, the company has 15 days to report it. Now, the fourth requirement in that law is pretty steep. It's the whistleblower protection. So it recognizes that employees inside AI companies often see risks before anyone else. They are the ones running the test. They are the ones seeing the results. And SB 53 protects these employees. Companies must maintain anonymous reporting channels. Employees can report concerns without giving their names. Employees can report to the attorney general, to federal authorities, or to managers within the company. And the companies cannot retaliate against those employees who make good faith reports. No firing, no demotion, no punishment for speaking up. And this matters because the most important safety information often comes from people in the inside. So SB 53 makes sure people feel safe when they raise concerns. So what happens if a company doesn't comply? There are civil penalties of up to $1 million per violation. And this is enforced by California's Attorney General. The law takes effect January 1, 2026. And there's another thing that's important in that law. The California Department of Technology can recommend annual updates to the law. What this does is that it recognizes that there's evolution in AI. So it means that every year there will be updates to acknowledge these evolutions. They can adjust the definitions to keep pace of how fast AI is changing. The focus is on transparency and early detection, getting information out before something really bad goes wrong. All right, so now let's talk about what this might mean for your career. Someone might read this law and think, hey, this law creates a lot of compliance burdens for companies. And yeah, it does to some extent. However, I also see this as an opportunity to create jobs. Every requirement that I just described requires people to implement it. So let me walk you through some of the roles that this law would create or promote. So role number one is AI risk managers. These are the people leading catastrophic risk assessments, developing mitigation strategies, deciding what's safe to deploy and what needs more work. Role number two is AI governance specialists. These are the people writing the frontier AI frameworks, making sure that they meet regulatory requirements, keeping them updated as the law evolves. Role number three, these are AI ethics officers. These are people who are ensuring alignment with ethical standards. They're bridging the gap between technical teams and policy requirements. Role number four, AI safety auditors. These are third-party evaluators who conduct independent risk assessments. This is a growth area because the law specifically asks about third-party involvement. Role number 5 are incident response specialists. These are people who manage critical safety incident detection, who build reporting protocols and making sure that companies meet those 24-hour and 15-day deadlines. Role number 6 is the AI policy analyst. These are people who track regulatory developments, not just in California, but across the states and internationally. They advise leadership on compliance strategies. These roles exist. Companies are hiring for them, and the demand is only going to grow. So, what skills do you need to position yourself for these opportunities? Let's talk about them in 3 categories. First is your technical knowledge. You need to understand what frontier models are and how they are trained. You don't need to be able to build one, but you need to understand the basics. Now, I've talked about this a few times on this channel about how these systems work, being able to understand how they work and talk about how they work. You should also know the NIST AI risk management framework. I have a whole video on this. I'll link it in the description. You should also be familiar with the ISO IEC 42001, which is a standard for AI management system. And you need a basic understanding of AI capabilities and limitations. What can these models actually do? What can't they do? And where are their risks? Second is governance and compliance skills. For example, risk assessment methodologies. How do you actually evaluate whether something is dangerous? Policy writing and framework development. Can you take complex requirements and turn them into actionable documents? Incidents response and reporting protocols. What happens when something goes wrong? And you also need an understanding of the regulatory landscape, not just SB 53, but the EU AI Act, the New York's RAISE Act, what's happening at the federal level. Third, you need soft skills. I don't know why they call them soft skills, but these are the most important skills because if you don't have them, then all the other ones are mute. Communication skills is number 1. Communicating technical risks to non-technical stakeholders. The board doesn't need to know about flops. They need to know what the risks are and what you're going to do about it. You also need to understand how to collaborate cross-functionally. You'll be working with legal teams, engineering teams, policy teams, all at once. And another thing you'll need is ethical reasoning and judgment. Sometimes there's no clear roadmap, and you have to make judgment calls based on your understanding of ethics. So let me give you some concrete action steps. Step number 1, study the actual law. Read SB 53. Understand those definitions. Understand the requirements. Understand the timelines. Be able to explain it to someone else. Remember, I've talked about it before in this channel. Be able to explain it to an 8-year-old. So that when you're in a job interview, if someone asks about AI governance, you'll be able to walk them through AI governance using this law. Step number 2, learn these frameworks. Get familiar with NIST AI risk management framework. Like I said, I have a video on this. It's one of the standards that SB 53 specifically mentions. Step number 3, follow these companies. Read Anthropic's responsible scaling policy. Read OpenAI's preparedness framework. Read Google's DeepMind frontier safety framework. I know that's a long one, but they do have a safety framework. These are all public documents. They show you how the leading companies are already thinking about AI safety. Step number 4, build credibility. Learn and practice these skills. Now, remember, you may actually need to practice and perform these skills in an environment that allows you to grow. So Join an AI governance or an AI safety community. The field is small enough right now that you can actually build a reputation by consistently showing up and adding value. These are all signals to an employer that you're serious about the field. So let me leave you with this perspective. AI governance actually creates innovation. The question isn't whether we'll have AI governance, really. It's mostly about whether we have enough qualified people to do it well. So this is your opportunity. AI governance is here to stay. AI governance is going from nice to have to legally required. So the people who position themselves now, who understand both the technology and the policies, will shape how this plays out. You can be one of those people. If you want to go deeper on AI governance and ethics career, subscribe and hit that bell. I am creating more content on exactly this topic. And if you found this video valuable, drop a comment telling me what's the number one thing you're going to do this week to build your AI governance knowledge. I'll link resources in the description, including the full text of SB 53, the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, and my video on breaking into AI governance careers. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.